Oh, yeah. Good evening, everyone. This is Pankaj Kumar from Kotak Securities Private Client Group Research. I would like to welcome everyone for the webinar on outlook on infrastructure and construction sector. Before I take you through the session, I would like to just give a brief background of myself. I have total 14 years experience in fundamental research, and I've been mostly tracking infrastructure and mid caps segment. And in Kotak Securities for last 5 years, I've been tracking mid caps. Uh, so now I would like to run down the presentation. Yeah. So as today we would be discussing outlook on infrastructure and construction sector. So through this presentation, I would like to answer three major questions that everyone will be having in the mind. First is why infra and construction stocks are beaten down in the current scenario, and what should you look at these? What should you look at before investing in these stocks? Which segments and the stocks are likely to do well in the sector? So before I answer these questions through different slides, I would like to first give you an overview on the sector. So infrastructure, when we say it's a crucial growth enabler, so if you are aware, like Government of India is targeting some $5 trillion economy by FY25, and so for this, more supply side reforms are required, and creating new and upgrading infrastructure would be the key for achieving these targets, and also improving the competitiveness and in the whole thing. So infra creation will also boost employment and will create income generation, and it will spur demand, domestic demand. So the infrastructure also creates efficiency gains, which improves the overall like logistic network, road network, metro, airport. All these we need more efficient infrastructure to achieve higher growth rates and to achieve this economy size by FY25. So infrastructure India needs to invest some $4.5 trillion infra by FY22 30 to sustain the growth. So this is what the government has been targeting over a longer period. And if you look at India's overall position in the infrastructure space in the whole world, is it's ranked as a 70 out of 140 in terms of global competitive index. So we still need to do a lot of things, and so as of 2018, some Indian GDP was some $2.6 trillion, and the services were having some 54% share, industry 31, and 15% agriculture. So as India is now targeting $5 trillion economy by 2025, and another 10 trillion by 2030. So $4.5 trillion of investment is required to sustain the growth rate and meeting these targets. Uh, Increasing urban population and also creates a lot of need for the infrastructure. So India's population, if you look at, is grown at 1.2%, while the urban population has grown at a much faster rate of 2.4%. And so there's an increase in urbanization, and these levels are estimated to the urbanization level is expected to be around 42% by 2030, from 34% in 2018. So it is estimated that by 2030, five states, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Punjab, will have more than 50% urbanization. So these five states will have higher urban population share. And also the number of metropolitan cities in India is estimated to increase from 46 in 2011 to 68 by 2030. So there is a lot of investment required in the urban infra side, and a lot of road, flyovers, power, improving power supply distribution, water supply and sanitation, urban transit system like metros, and low cost housing in urban area to reduce slums. So these all infrastructure need are there for over a longer period. Infrastructure is a critical for success of Make in India program, as well as you are aware that the government is focused on Make in India program, where they would be having more manufacturing competitiveness, and so that depends on infrastructure. And this requires faster logistics infrastructure in terms of rail, roads, ports, and airports. So investment in these segments are also required. And infra, if you look at the recent speech of Prime Minister Modi, he cited that infrastructure as one of the 5 pillars of self-reliant India. So, and so after this COVID-19 breakout, India is looking at opportunity to gain market share in the overall global trade. So for that, there's a thirst on infrastructure. And in order to achieve all these targets, government has created a national infrastructure pipeline. So this is a 5-year plan, infrastructure development plan, and focused on all key sectors with the investment of some 102 trillion rupees over 5 years. And this is spread across sectors. And so the key area to focus in this is affordable and clean energy, and convenient and efficient transportation and logistics, housing and water supply, and doubling farmer income, smart cities. So these are the various areas where NIP is focusing on. Now, in this slide, I just want to show that on the left side, if you see the GDP in PPP terms of India. In order to meet this $5 trillion economy, India needs to upgrade its existing infrastructure. And if you look at India intends to be, say, second in the whole among these 4-5 countries by 2050. That's what I've been looking at. That's what they are targeting. So if you look at the whole world economy could more than double in size by 2050. And 6 of the 7 largest economy would be projected to be emerging economy by 2050. With China number 1 and India number 2. So while these changes shape in the direction of the world growth, infrastructure requirement would be influenced by the various factors. So as discussed, India infra development is important for smoothing the urbanization process. So if you look at the right side of this graph, where urbanization in 1991 was 25.7%, and 2011 it was 31.1%, and by 2030 it is projected at some 41.7%. So with the help of Housing for All and Smart City Mission, the government is working on reducing the bottlenecks on the urban infra investment. The next slide, if you look at the right side of this graph, where there's a infrastructure. If you look at the investment over trend over last several years, and so the world economy would, as if you look at the infrastructure investment in India during FY 8 to 17, it was around some 60 lakh crore or usually 1.1 trillion. And investment in the 11th plan that was from 2008 to 12 was around 24 lakh crore. And 12th 5-year plan, which was 2013 to 17, it was 36 lakh crore just at current prices. However, this infrastructure as a proportion of GDP fell to 5% during 10th 5-year plan from 7% in the 11th plan. So as per estimates, India infrastructure investment in fiscal 18 to 19 are 10.2 lakh crore and 10 lakh crore in these 2 years. And During this period, infra investment was predominantly made by public sector. The central and the state government have together invested some 65%, while share of the private was 35%. And the private participation was more in case of roads, more in case of road, airport, then the communication, power, and government had also done several reforms, like they have permitted some 100% FDI in this through automatic route in the sector, and construction development sector received FDI inflows of some $25.4 billion during this period, while infra investment received some $16.4 billion in April 2000 to December 2019. So in terms of sector, if you look at power contributed some 32%, and then the roads 18%. If you look at the right hand side of this graph, and then we have urban infra at 13% and telecom 13%, railways 10%, and irrigation 9%. So these were the major segments which contributed this some $80 trillion investment made during the FY 8 to 19. Coming to next slide, if you look at the some 2-3 important sectors. So railways on the right hand side, on the left hand side of this graph, if you look at the railways, this gross revenue trend for railways. So that grew by some 6.2% CAGR during FY 8 to 19, and railway received allocation under the budget FY 2020. FY 21 around some 72,000 crore, and railway will require some investment of rupees 35.3 trillion by 2032 for capacity addition and modernization. So capex in the sector is expected to grow very fast in future. On the right hand side, if you look at power, so installed capacity increased at a CAGR of 8.6% during FY 7 to FY 19, and this stood at some 356 gigawatt at the end of FY 19. So it's largely inclined towards thermal 66%, renewable some 22%, hydro 13%, and nuclear 2%. India still is having a low per capita electricity consumption at 1181 kilowatt. So renewable share in this consumption stands at just 9%. So power, we are still far behind. In the next slide, we have discussed about roads. So this national highway, if you look at India's total strength, is around 1.3 lakh kilometers, and this includes some 1600 kilometers of expressways, and there's a low private participation in the sector at 15%, and highway construction, if in FY 19 was some 10,855 house. So this the construction has grown very fast. This has grown at some 20.6% CAGR during FY 14 to 19. Now, the questions that we have in our mind, like why the infra stocks have fallen. So there are several challenges which the industry has faced. If you look at the core sector has grown at some 0.6% in FY 20. So these there are some 8 core sectors: coal, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, fertilizers, steel, cement, electricity. And so these sectors have altogether grown at some 0.6%. This shows that there is a weakness in demand for the core infra activities across sectors. Even the order inflows were slow in last year. Because in the first half of the financial year there was elections, so all these ordering from the government was not happening, and that was all shifted towards second half. And also there was some because the government changed, the ministers have changed, there's some slowdown in the overall process also happened, and towards the end we have seen this COVID happen. So these all things have impacted overall ordering, and there was a slowdown in that. And even the bank credit to infra also slowed. That I'll discuss in the later slide. If you look at gross bank credit, that is declined with 0.9%. Also, there were execution issues in terms of project approvals. There were land hurdles, even de-scoping of projects. So even if you look at that, the land prices have gone up significantly, and that impacted the land acquisition by the authorities. And there was lesser land available, or the overall the project plan got changed. Even there was a lot of right of way issues that we have seen in roads, transmission line projects, the projects in the road sector, and in the several other infrastructure segment. So we have seen like there's some of the HAM projects in the road sector delayed by some 1 year or even 1.5 years because of all these land and right of way issues. So even if you look at this approval related issues, there's L&T's coastal road project got stuck. There's several projects de-scoped due to local protest of land hurdles that we had seen in the Kerala in past. In AP, if you look at after change in the government, this whole Amravati city project got stuck. That had impacted L&T, NCC. NCC was having larger share of orders from Andhra, and they had to took off these orders from the order backlog. So in the recent results, L&T has removed some 29,000 crore of orders related to Andhra Pradesh, along with some orders are subject to clearance from the Green Tribunal. So they have to taken off this much of order from the 3 lakh crore of order book. Also, there was a working capital deterioration. Issue was there. So if you look at L&T as a case, working capital increased 35% of sales for standalone, and so the working capital has increased by 35% from 24%, and there 1 to 2% impact from COVID was there. Even the Q4, there were many such such things like central government agencies like NHAI. There were some project clearance happened, of course, but like NHAI had cleared some 25,000 crore in the March. But these were a few things that we have seen towards the end of the financial year. So this 8 core sector, if you look at in FY20, there is a natural gas and crude oil we have seen decline. Then electricity also, then cement we have seen some decline. So this is how this cumulative growth was at 0.6%. Then there's a slowdown in certain sectors from the government budgetary support as well. If you look at the sectors like capex in railways and roads, seeing they have grown at a slower pace, and then growth, however, picked up in urban. So this growth, if you see railways, this the 3% and the road 14%. But in the past, if you see this, the overall growth in the capex, the budgetary support for the capex in the sector was say 50, 25, 33%, and FY20 it was 7% just. And now, though it has improved, but it's still much lower than what it had happened in the past. In the railway, same, the 3% kind of growth was there. In housing and urban infra, 10% growth is there, but still we see 56, and there was a 56% growth in FY17, but then there's a decline as well. So a lot of sectors I've seen in terms the overall allocation growth toward these sectors have been slowed in last few years. Then there's a gross bank credit to the infrastructure, because bank credit is important for infra, and there is a slowdown that we have seen in FY20. If you look at the gross bank credit to infrastructure sector has declined by 0.9% in last 1 year, as banks are more having more stringent norms in giving credit to infrastructure projects. Several projects have faced issue with the financial closure, even though they have backed the project, but there was a financial closure issue. as the balance sheet of the criteria have been more strict. Even for the bank guarantee limits, there's more stringent criteria for the construction companies. So they've increased the margins for the bank guarantee limits. So that has also affected the growth. And now, lastly, on this COVID thing has also impacted at 20 towards the end, but FY21 would be more impacted because of this, because companies with large exposure to the red zone, hotspot districts would hurt execution. Companies in Mumbai, or say like JKIL or Capacite, they are having more projects from Mumbai, and where the COVID issue is very high. So these companies may face issues in terms of execution, though the government has allowed execution, but there is a lot of hurdles on the ground as well. So L&T is having some 25% order backlog from these red zone districts in India. That's what they've disclosed in the recent result. So that will also lead to loss of work, if you see in the initial part of this Q1 FY21, due to lockdown, there was a loss of work days when this delayed the project, several projects. So L&T said that there's and this will also result into increased working capital, as L&T said, some 1 to 2% increase in working capital due to COVID in Q4. So, and there are several entities who are dependent on the budgetary support would also face issue because the government resources would be diverted towards healthcare and fighting against COVID. So sectors like road, power, railways, we see higher allocation from the government budgetary support will face issues. Even the revival in the construction ecosystem will take time. So when we talk about construction ecosystem, it includes raw materials like cement, steel, bitumen supply, and labor. So these all things would take time. However, on the raw material supply, since there's the manufacturing units have started, but on the labor side, issues is still there. So majority of laborers, like 60 to 70%, are migrants, and who have already either gone back to their native place or are stuck in somewhere. So the companies are working at a lower utilization rate of say 40 to 60% at present. So L&T, they have said like they are working at some 40% labor, working with some 40% laborers at 90 sites. So these expected to, however, these are expected to revive in coming days. But FY21 is expected to be subdued, with Q1 largely impacted, and recovery in monsoon quarter may not matter much due to rain. Hence, Q2 would be crucial. Return to pre-COVID levels may be swift by FY22. That's what we can see. But the project's owners are likely to see cash flows mismatch due to lower user fees in toll, traffic, etc., or even airlines, airports to face short-term cash flow mismatch. This is what we may see in FY21. Now we have just taken L&T as a case, and now since we are giving examples on L&T, so if you look at the L&T's receivables, so that has gone up in March 20 from 91 days to 111 days. Similarly, working capital, that percentage, if you look at in terms of total E&C sale, has increased from 18% to 24%. So this is what we have seen in case of L&T. So deterioration of working capital has happened, though at a very smaller scale. L&T, if you look at the company, is having some 3 lakh crore of order book, and some 74% sales are from infra sector. Of this order book are from infra sector. So we may see some impact on of this on the company. So that's why as a house we are projecting some 20% decline in order received, and some 18.7% decline in revenue, and even the EBITDA margin will may come down to 8.4% because of lower revenue that we are estimating. There are debt concerns for NHAI. So NHAI, if you look at their debt has debt to equity has gone up from 0.7% from 0.7 times to 0.9 times. So this is what we have seen, and in the past it used to be around 0.2 to 0.3 times. However, during this phase, from FY15 to 17-18, we have seen a lot of project awarding, and they borrowed all as well. Now, these things has the ordering activity has slowed down in recent time because there is a balance sheet issue with the NHAI, and NHAI is targeting to monetize its asset. Like there are some more than 6,000 kilometer of projects which they are targeting to monetize, and they are targeting to raise some 1,10,000 some 11,000 crore in FY20 and some 12,000 crore in FY21 through TOT. But the TOT, we have seen the response in the last few TOT been not so good. So that may also face little issues in during the current scenario when there is a liquidity constraint and there is a lot of investment is moving towards safer assets and investments. So we may see some slowdown from NHAI in near term in terms of project awarding. Now the sector tailwinds. So we've seen why the stocks have fallen. What are the concerns now? What is there in future? So if you look at lower in last 1 year, the interest rates have come down, and however the transmission of these rates are little lower, but we may expect in future that we may see more transmission of rate cuts happening. Also, there is a relief to contractor in terms of extension and release of bank guarantee limits. So as part of mega economic package, government agencies will provide extension up to 6 months to the contractor without levying any additional cost or obligation on them for completion of work. So there's this extension will cover to all central agencies by all central agencies like railways, road ministry, CPWD. Everyone will take care of that. In terms of bank guarantee limit, there's a partial release of bank guarantee to the extent of contract are complete. So this is positive step and can help release some liquidity and contract for the contractors. There's also faster bill clearance we have seen. NHAI is clearing some 25,000 crore in March, and when the tendering activity has continued in the recent time, we have seen like just today the news like Adani Green Energy has backed some 45,000 crore of that's investment for constructing 8 gigawatt photovoltaic plant and some 2 gigawatt of solar cell module. So this for 5 years, but such kind of project awarding is happening in the current scenario as well. Even NHAI is having a pipeline of some 56,000 crore of projects, and they intend to award some 25% of these projects by FY21. So tendering is happening. Even the states are proactive. We have seen states like UP, Telangana, even Maharashtra has also picked up. They've invited tenders in the recent time. So Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway projects, they are paying well. So there is a proactive approach by states. And NIP, which we will discuss again in terms of sectors, is giving a lot of opportunity in terms of investment in the road projects. Even the road projects awarding, if you look at that had over a longer period, government is having a lot of projects, and the last FY19, FY20, there is a slowdown because of the reason which I have cited. But the Bharat Mala Pariyojana project, which is of some 34,800 kilometer with the investment of total 5 lakh crore, and NHAI is taking care of some 27,500 kilometer of projects in phase 1. So there is huge opportunity from in terms of tendering from NHAI as well in the future. Coming to now NIP, so if you look at overall NIP, which National Infrastructure Pipeline, this is a $102 trillion rupees project and with the investment phase of over next 5 years, and large part of investment is planned for FY21 and 22. However, government has taken into account like there may be some spillover from FY21 or 22 to 23, 24. But they are this is what they are looking at in terms of investment, and this is spread across various sectors. If you look at this slide, where some 24% would be for energy, 19% for roads, and railways will have 13%, and urban will have 16%. So these four sectors will have some 72% of total NIP capex in next 5 years. So large thrust is on these sectors. In terms of overall investment, the 78% share is of public sector. These are center plus state, center and state both will invest equally. This is what they have targeted. And under this, if you look at overall projects, 42% of these 102 trillion rupees projects is already under implementation, and and they are a balance. They would be awarding in for 5 years. So, in terms of sectors, if you look at the road, this national infrastructure pipeline is targeting some 1.99 lakh kilometer from 1.32 lakh kilometer of road network, and expressways will be having some 10% of this total share by FY25, and so this will be some 20,000 kilometer versus current 1,600 kilometer, and major economic corridors, strategic areas, and there's a major tourist destination they will be covering, and there will be significantly higher share of private sector in national highways, from low share of 15%, which is there, and private investment which they are looking at in the highways would be around 25%, and there will be last mile connectivity to remote areas as well. In addition, for the PPP project and monitoring those projects, there's an increased use of FASTag and RFID devices, so that will reduce the leakages and congestions at the toll plaza. And some of the key projects in this NIP is Delhi-Mumbai Expressway and Chennai-Bangalore Expressway. In the power, if you look at the current capacity is 356 gigawatt. Renewable is having some 22% share. Now this the government is targeting to increase to 619 gigawatt, and with large contribution from the renewable segment. So that share of renewable will go to 39% by 2025. That's what they are targeting. And also there is a lot of focus on DISCOMs in terms of restructuring and all. So DISCOMs are under huge debt burden and resort to unscheduled load setting. So government is targeting to reduce AT&T losses, which is currently at some 8 to 41%, and they are targeting it at a much lower level. And they are looking at a lot of PPP in DISCOMs. Recently, if you look at government has announced a privatization of DISCOMs. So there was news on government planning to privatize the electricity distribution companies in union territories by January 21. This is what we have seen in today's newspaper. Even government is looking at smart metering. So this is less than 5% installed as on June, and so government is now looking at increasing this smart metering. So the major projects in this power that is some 11.8 lakh crore, which is what NIP is looking at. The major projects include some Dibang hydropower project and HVDC bipole link project, which is a transmission line project. In irrigation, government is looking at some 7.7 lakh crore investment and in 5 years, and the focus is to increase area under irrigation. And so as of now, some 49% area is irrigated, which is they are targeting to increase to 61%. And so this will reduce the dependency on monsoon. And so micro irrigation is also focused. So they intend to cover some 28% of total irrigated area through micro irrigation. and this will also lead to efficient use of water. And also, there's a larger focus on river interlinking project, which is not much there. So they intend to increase the area under irrigation through this river interlinking, and also the domestic and industrial water supply would also improve after all these projects which they are talking. For railways, some 13.7 lakh crore investment is targeted, and there's a more thrust on freight traffic. So as of now is 33%. That share that government is looking at more than 40% by 2025, and a lot of focus on privatization. And as they're looking at some 500 passenger trains to be privatized, that 30 of the 750 stations to be privatized on in the rolling stock from private sector they are looking at. On dedicated freight corridor, as of now, 2 DFCs are under implementation. They're looking at 4 more. And high-speed rail corridors, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, high-speed rail corridors to be operational. That's what they're looking at. And even 100% of the existing rail networks to be electrified. That's what government is targeting. So in the railway, 87% investment will be done by government, central government, and 60% of the projects are presently at an investment phase. In ports, there's a 1 lakh crore of investment. India is having some 12 major ports, 200 minor ports, and they're looking at more ports through Sagarmala project. And there's also this in order to reduce the logistic cost and improve the turnaround time. The government is looking at investment in technologies, and even the marine. If you look at overall Vision 25 under Sagarmala, new minor and major ports will be constructed, and so focus is there on that side. Next is on the airport. If you look at India, is presently third largest aviation market. Government is targeting second to be in top 2. And there are some 25 airports operate at 100% plus capacity as of now. So there is a congestion. So government intends to reduce this congestion through new airports, greenfield as well as the brownfield airports. And and government is targeting to privatize some 30 to 35 airports owned by AI, and also increasing the connectivity to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So some of the major project is the Navi Mumbai Airport and Jewar Airport. That's what the government is looking at. Urban infrastructure is important one, much larger in terms of overall allocation for the investment which is 16.3 lakh crore, and so 25% household, as I discussed earlier, urban so having the drinking water at the premise. So government is targeting to increase to cover it to 100% in terms of rural and urban households through Jal Jeevan Mission, and there's 100% solid waste to be treated. That's what government is targeting. And this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana projects, government is looking at to decongest the cities from slums. So that's what government is targeting. So now who will be the beneficiary from this? So as I said, there are 42 trillion rupees implemented, and projects are under implementation. So expected beneficiary from this are road, EPC, T&D and gas pipeline companies. There's some 19 trillion rupees of projects under development. Their focus is more on urban infra, roads, expressways, green energy corridor. So the players like L&T, then KEC, Kalpataru, these would be benefited. And even there are a lot of projects, some 33 trillion of rupees of projects at conceptualization stage. So this includes river interlinking projects and GEC. So L&Ts, players like L&Ts would be benefited from this. And there are few projects there are some projects in the unclassified segment with some 8 trillion rupees, which is largely in power, and that will be positive for the power companies. Now coming to our topics, we are like in the whole segment. This what we like is some 8-9 ideas. So we are positive on Kalpataru Power, that we like, the company we like. So the criteria that we have used for selecting all these companies are based on strong balance sheet, execution track record, and cash flows, working capital, lower working capital, diversification towards the sector, good ROE, ROCs, and projects are well funded, financial closures achieved. Or so these are various criteria we have looked at. So Kalpataru Power, it's a transmission line story. So it's a EPC player, and they have some 133 billion rupees of order book. The company is targeting some 10% growth in FY21. Then difficult time, they are targeting some 10% revenue growth. And new order inflows, they are targeting from Power Grid of some 150 billion rupees from T&D space. And they're also looking at a space in the gas pipeline. So some 100 billion rupees of order they're targeting in the oil and gas space. And the railways, they are looking at some 20 billion rupees of orders from electrification. So it's also a diversified player with large focus on the T&D side. GAIL is a good story that we are liking, and which is a story on a pipeline infrastructure. And so it's a topic among the energy PSU, given the structural growth prospects and a play on oil price recovery. So GAIL, we have some target price of 150 rupees and upside also more than 50%. PNC Infra, we have been pushing this stock. We are positive on it based on the strong order book, execution track record, and the overall balance sheet is also under leveraged. So that can help them in growing in future. It's a good story on the road sector, and stock is trading at attractive valuation. It's where we see more than 40-45% upside on the current level. In KC International, it's also a transmission T&D story, and they're also having good order book. They're guiding for over 50% revenue growth in FY21 based on good order book. So there also we see some 39% upside. Power Grid, transmission infra developer, PSU, we like this stock, where we see some 37% upside. GMR is story on airport, where we see a lot of investment potential is there, and GMR is having good assets like Delhi and Hyderabad airport, and they have good execution capability as well. So over a longer period, this company can also do well. L&T, we are very much positive on, is a large cap player in the infra sector. So more than 70% business from infra sector. And if you look at the balance sheet is quite strong, so it can attract labor resources due to timely payments in the difficult time. So balance sheet is also giving comfort in absorbing more government clients towards during now in the current scenario. If you see, government will be more stiff in terms of working capital terms. So L&T is having good balance sheet, so they can absorb all these balance sheet related requirements. Then the strong hydrocarbon team is there, which can grow the Africa business. And they have also the stock is trading at a relatively attractive valuation vis-a-vis historical levels. So trading at some 14 times on our FY22 earnings. So we are positive on L&T, where we see 25% upside. Tata Power, story on the power sector. We like the stock. We see 25% upside. And from port sector, Adani Port and SEZ, where we see some 13% upside. So with some decline, we can see look at the stock. So these are the stocks that we look at from the infra space and construction space. Now I would open the session for Q&A. So I'll be taking some questions which are there.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Pankaj. It was indeed very insightful. Rusmik, I'd like to welcome Rusmik Oza, who's heading our fundamental research desk at Kotak Securities. He's been with Kotak Group for more than 10 years. I welcome him. He'll join us for the open round of question and answer, which our clients and our prospects have shared with us. Rusmik, we welcome you.
Thanks, Kritika, and thanks for all the viewers and listeners. There are some select interesting questions which have come up during this webinar. I would like to pick some of them and take the inputs of Pankaj on those. One is, Pankaj, which pocket of infrastructure, infrastructure is very vast. Which pocket of infrastructure actually from a stock market perspective offers good opportunity in the next coming short term, medium and long term?
So as I discussed, some 70% of the overall opportunity comes from four major sectors. These are road, power, and urban infra, and railways. So when we look at these four segments, we need to look at the company which is diversified, L&T. If you look at, it's a pretty diversified in the infra space, having presence in each and every sector. So L&T would be our top pick if we have to play on all these four major sectors where the investments are expected. And based on their execution capability and the strong order book, the company can deliver growth over a longer period. In the short term, of course, there might be execution challenge for the companies because of the COVID issues, because of the loss of working days and all. So the stock is also corrected. We can see good upside from the current level, say around 25% upside. The stock is trading at some 14 times on a forward earnings. So L&T is one stock. Even PNC Infra from the smaller cap space looks good. Of course, it's on the road sector, but road again we see good investment pipeline is there, project pipeline is there, and NHAI could not award a lot of projects in Q4 which they were targeting. So now the company, a lot of companies are also indicating that NHAI's tendering activity is improving, and in Q1 end and Q2 beginning, we will see a lot of tenders coming in, and PNC has got good orders in Q4 as well. So some 15,000 crore of total order book. They have got some more than 4,000 crore order book in Q4. So based on that, the company can deliver more than 20% growth in revenues and earnings as well over a longer period. So we see good upside in PNC Infra because the stock was beaten down and trading at attractive valuations of 8 and 9 times on forward earnings.
You were talking about execution, what is the normal track record of execution of these companies, and which are the better companies in terms of execution in this infrastructure space from a listed perspective?
So when we say execution, execution is in terms of overall track record. If you look at, there are several companies who have delivered projects ahead of schedule, and they have that kind of track record. So one is the time based execution, other is the execution capability. So time based execution, we have seen companies like KNR, PNC delivered the projects ahead of schedule. In terms of capability, L&T is having that capability to construct difficult projects and complex projects that is diversified over sectors. So these are few companies that you can look at. Even KEC and Kalpataru have done well in the transmission projects. They have worked in a difficult terrain where execution is difficult, and delivered good. Or they have good order book as well, and they are targeting good growth in, say, next year as well, some 10 to 15% kind of revenue growth in difficult times. So these companies have good execution track record and can deliver good numbers in next year.
Okay. There is one question, I have plugged two questions. So one is, how is the financial viability of a lot of these large infrastructure projects, and considering that what is the payback period for some of the large infrastructure projects, and considering that the government finances are a little under constraint, do you see some of the companies, leverage going up or the balance sheet getting stretched going forward?
So in terms of, again, it's all about balance sheet thing. When we say the overall delivery of the project, first is your project selection and then your balance sheet strength. So project selection is very important. So the companies who have selected projects which are not viable have faced issues in the past. We have several examples. LFS is that we have seen in the past. They have borrowed, they have taken so much of projects which they could not fund. They funded those projects through subdebts, through the intergroup borrowings. So that has resulted into huge leverage. So, but if you look at there are certain companies who have selected good projects. L&T in terms of engineering and construction, relatively better place. Then we have other companies that in the space that we are covering. Ashoka is having good, relatively better project selection in the road space. Same is with KNR. If you look at, they are very focused on their geography. Say 98% south-based project they have taken. So once your strength, so if you select a project based on your capability and your strength in a geography or in terms of resources, then you can execute project in time. So that will save your project cost. That will reduce the cost overrun, and that makes project more viable. And if you look at the infrastructure projects, normally any returns that we see in terms of IRR, if it is more than say 15% kind of IRR there, then the company can generate good returns in the project. For the BOT projects I'm talking about. And so the companies like Ashoka and even KNR, because if you see why these all the multilateral agencies or even the PE investors have come into these companies because of their project quality of project which they have selected. And so these are few companies who have taken good projects and have not faced much issues what we have seen in case of ILFS or any other companies that had faced issues in the past.
Okay. Another question, interesting question is, should you play infrastructure stocks directly, or should you route it through some of the ancillary companies who provide service to all these infrastructure projects like construction or cement or steel, something like that? What's your take on that?
So, of course, as you rightly said, infrastructure, it's not just the construction or the infra developers who we can play. We can also play on the companies or sectors which are ancillary to it or supplying raw material to these companies, to this sector, like cement, steel, or other. But cement, we have seen that is, we have seen a lot of roads are being constructed through cement. That concrete road is being built. So demand for cement is there. And once we talk about this, the investment that we're talking about in the 102 trillion rupees investment in national infrastructure pipeline, so that will create a lot of demand for the ancillary sectors. And this investment is spread across segments. So in urban infra, say housing, you see a lot of cement demand will happen. So cement is one sector to play on. Again, the power we talk about because the largest pie is going towards power sector. So now the all companies are focusing on a renewable as well. So there we'll see more opportunities coming in. So that is a segment we can look at over a longer period. Of course, for the shorter term, we can see once the ordering activity starts, we'll see a lot of orders are coming to the construction players. And where L&T is well placed, they are diversified, and they would get a larger pie of these opportunities in the immediate term, and can give good revenue growth visibility as well. So the ancillary companies, L&T or the E&C companies gives revenue growth visibility in near term. Cash flows keeps on coming, and ancillary sectors like cement or power, where we see over a longer period the growth will happen. So these two segments we are more positive on, rather than just asset owner like maybe IRB, where we see a lot of cash flows are back ended. So that there the benefit will accrue over a very long period. And in the short term, a lot of risk related to interest rate, the traffic, toll, these all things will keep on coming for these companies.
Recently, we have seen after the lockdown, a lot of laborers, migrant laborers have gone back to their home, and most of the infrastructure projects are all, labor intensive. So what's your outlook? When will things normalize for us, and when will the activity again on execution pick up in this segment in the short term or long term?
So labor thing, if you look at when this lockdown announced, initially the laborers were there with all these companies, the contract with all these contractors. So, but once the lockdown started, when the government lifted the lockdown and construction activities allowed, during that time we have seen a lot of panic happen in the laborers, and they have started migrating. And during that time, these all companies faced a lot of issues because they were about to restart the project, but at that time the labor were moving out. Now steady, so if you look at towards the end of May, the companies which we are tracking or we have been speaking to, so they are indicating some 40 to 60% labors are available at their different sites. So L&T has indicated that at the 90% of their sites, some 40% labors are available. But the company is also indicating that this trend is improving. Now the labors are coming back, say next 2-3 months, these all activity, the labor availability will improve further. So in say next 2-3 months, the things will improve. And anyway, this is a monsoon quarter, so execution is also at a slower pace. So we believe that Q1 will, of course, will see a lot of impact, but Q2 again will improve on quarter-on-quarter basis. And then by Q3 we'll see that's what all these companies are estimated that by Q3 that things will normalize.
There's one more question on the power sector, because after this lockdown, power consumption has shown an improving trend as compared to last year. One of the few sectors which has shown a remarkable, demand coming back very fast. What's your outlook on power and any good company in that space to look at?
So power, we are, if you look at, of course, power consumption has been good. Though the offices are closed, but there's a consumption at the household have increased. And even during the lockdown, many of these other infra asset owners have faced issues related to consumption. Power has not faced to that extent. So over a longer period, as well as if you see, India is looking at some 650 gigawatt kind of power capacity, and that so demand is there, the consumption is there, and government is looking at reducing the AT&T losses, say from 40-50, in certain cases 40% was they are targeting to reduce it through privatization and all. So over a longer period, we are positive on companies like Tata Projects. We see it's trading at attractive valuation as well, and based on the huge investment opportunity in the sector and good management as well. So also on the T&D side, a lot of, as I stated, because of this, the power demand has been increasing, and even during the COVID times, it is there. A lot of reforms are being taking place in the T&D side to reduce the losses. So that T&D players like KC, Kalpataru would also be benefited. So we are positive on these two stocks.
Okay. There are some couple of questions on one of the smaller companies like NCC, HCC, and all that. Do you prefer, or recommend these kind of companies, or stick with the quality names?
I would always prefer to stick with the quality names. Of course, if you look at our top picks in the small cap space, is more or like companies who are executing well, like PNC or KNR. NCC is a diversified player, but in terms of presence in different segment, but their geographical exposure in FY19 was tilted towards AP, where the change in government impacted everything, and all these a lot of projects got cancelled. So they had to take off some 12,000 crore of order book, and that's why the overall revenue growth visibility got impacted. Even there's a working capital that got stuck with AP. The company is targeting to reduce that through recovery. Order inflows have been weak, but they are also very much cautious in terms of adding new order. So I would wait for companies like NCC unless we see good ordering activity happens and the balance sheet gets improved further. So because we have seen a good run up in the stock as well from the lows, so now it's almost trading at our fair value. So I'll wait for NCC as of now. HCC, it's a project selection is again very big issue. Working capital, then the claims outstanding. So a lot of issues are there. So I would avoid those stocks.
Yeah. One more stock specific query a lot of people have been asking about is NBCC. This was one favorite stock in the last bull market, beaten down. What's your take or view on NBCC?
So NBCC, we have been covering the stock for
Rusmik, I think we've lost Pankaj because of network issues. He's back here again. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Pankaj, yes, we're talking about NBCC.
So as NBCC, as I said, there were issues. Now these some issues are started getting resolved. Because there are 3 large colonies which were stuck for under litigation, and the Delhi High Court has cleared that. So even NCC, which has got one package out of it, has started construction on the project. So now the things are improving. But still FY21 we don't see much of growth. So next 1 or 2 years, because these projects are at an initial stage, we won't see much of the growth in earnings. So as of now, it's a hold kind of stock. If you're having it, you hold it. We'll see we a bit more clarity from the management on the lot of other stuck projects they're having in order books. As of now, it's just a hold.
Yeah. Beyond infrastructure, there are a lot of questions coming on real estate. Do you have any view on the real estate space? Because somewhere it is linked with infrastructure. People link it, and especially considering that a lot of REIT opportunities is coming up. Any take on that space?
So REIT as such is a good investment proposition, but these are again. I mean, if you look at before COVID. The commercial was there was a bull run in the commercial real estate market. The mall rentals or office rentals, all these segments were doing well, and and even the rental renegotiations were happening at a higher rate. So these all companies were also benefited from that. So there's a annuity based model, but now if you look at post COVID, a lot of things are being talked about in terms of overall viability of the commercial projects, considering the work from home as a culture being adopted over a longer period, particularly by the ITES sector. So as of now, there is a concern in the real estate sector in terms of investment in the asset, these assets, particularly on the office or commercial mall. So as of now, we would advise to hold the stocks. If it declines, like one stock we cover is the Embassy REIT. So once we see any major correction in the stock, then we can look at. As of now, it's a hold.
Okay. One question which is, how do you evaluate, or what are the points you look at when you're investing in infrastructure companies, from an analyst perspective?
So the stocks which we look at, I mean, that we are recommending. Of course, there are some 5-6 criteria that we look at. Of course, one is the management quality, the strength. So that is very important in terms of for the infrastructure, because a lot of companies have failed because of this concern only. So risk related to political and other issues. So corporate governance and all are very important. So that is one thing. Second is your, of course, balance sheet strength. So if your balance sheet is under leveraged, then you can grow in the difficult times as well. So if you see now L&T is saying they can absorb the higher working capital, increased working capital, because their balance sheet strength is there. Even if you look at the for future project, if you have to bid, you need bank guarantee limits and all. So if you are under leverage, you can get those. Banks are more ready to come to you. Company is selecting a project where cash flows risk are less, then that segment is always preferable. So project selection is very important criteria. And apart from that, if you look at the geographical diversification in terms of project diversification is important. Though we have few exceptions because of the other qualities are quite high. If you look at KNR, PG, though they are not much geographically diversified, but they are other criteria which are fulfilling all these concerns. And if you look at L&T, is a well diversified player. So diversification is very important, because we are going to see these all investment happening across sectors, not just 1 or 2 sectors. So that is there. And the interest rate scenarios, if it is benign, of course, the infra investment with the companies would be. These are more to do with the macro factor that we are, because it's a cyclical sector. So that is important.
Okay. I think, Pankaj, there are a lot of individual company questions, but I think so. I'll leave it on to you to respond individually, maybe by email or something. I'll just take the last question. is, a few investors have been asking that whether one should, they don't have that depth understanding of a lot of infra companies. So should they invest in infrastructure or ancillary companies directly, or look at some mutual fund route to invest in these kind of, or taking exposure to the sector?
So mutual fund as a segment, we don't track it, but what we can advise the investors or the clients, like the companies which we are recommending, and if those companies are there in the fund with the larger exposure, then the client can take exposure of those funds. But we don't track the mutual fund.
So I'll stop on the Q&A side over here. Pankaj, if you want to just conclude the session.
Yeah, thank you, Rasmi. So I would like to thank you all the participants for joining the session. So kindly mail us the queries to us that we can revert back to you. So the questions which we could not answer, as Rasmik has said, a lot of stock-specific questions were there. So we would come back to the clients with individual email reply to the extent which is possible. So thank you everyone for joining the session.
Thanks a lot, Pankaj. Thank you, Rusmik. It was a very insightful session. I hope our audience enjoyed the session. Thanks a lot.